Hey everyone, welcome. It is Friday afternoon, Friday. Congratulations, you have made it this far. This many weeks into a global pandemic, this many weeks into surviving shelter in place. So congratulations. I think that deserves a round of sanitary applause to ourselves. My name is Morgan Gache. I'm the CEO with the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce, and it's such a pleasure to be able to have you all come together and listen to some brilliant minds that are on this call as panelists. And I'm going to introduce them here in a moment. Obviously, we represent all locations in California, since I'm clearly here in San Andreas. And Emily below is evidently at the Golden Gate Bridge right now, so looks beautiful. This is awesome.
In my kitchen.
And Kathy is in her kitchen. Awesome. Well, welcome again to everyone. And I know this is a difficult time. You are on the Unpacking the Retail Roadmap. This is the Resilience Roadmap reopening guidelines set forth by the state of California. And we wanted to collaborate and bring out a unified message to help understand the complexities that are what we could call, the information that's coming out. So what I'd like to do, since you see all these gorgeous faces here, especially Colleen, I think has had so much Botox, she has not moved at all. But Colleen, I'll let you start. And if you can introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Rodriguez, and I am the Deputy Director of Public Health, which is part of the Health and Human Services Agency here in San Andreas. And during this exciting time, I don't even know what to say. I've been doing a lot. I don't know. Public health has had a lot to do during this, and just trying to keep our county and its residents safe from COVID-19. And so that involves a lot of different stuff. So that's me. And I'm really happy to be here.
Joining us, Colleen. Yeah, it's a privilege. And you guys will hear some good stuff from her momentarily. The next lovely face right below her is Miss Kathy Galino in her kitchen. Kathy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kathy Galino. I'm the Calaveras County Economic and Community Development Director, and I'm very honored to be with this group of panelists and to really help our communities move forward through this challenging time, and hope we can provide you with the resources and tools that you need.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. And right next to her is the beautiful Kristen Stranger. Kristen, do you want to introduce yourself to us?
Hi, sure. So I'm Kristen Stranger. I'm the Health and Human Services Agency Director, of which Public Health is a division within the agency. We have been obviously an integral part with the COVID-19 response, everything from contact tracing to health education materials development to alternate care site planning, just basically everything that's been going on. And so now as we move through into phase two, fully into phase two, we are focused a lot right now on making sure that community businesses and community partners are aware of the various guidance that pertains to reopening in a modified way that allows for economic return to some sort of a normalcy in terms of reopening businesses, but with making sure to preserve the health and safety of our community as well, and striking that balance as best as possible.
That's fantastic. I think probably your department, your sector has never received as much news press and public requests as you have right now. So good job on handling the craziness that is this pandemic. So grateful to have you on. And then we're going to cross over here to Debbie Ponte. Debbie, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Morgan. So yes, my name is Debbie Ponte. I'm the current Executive Director of Destination Angels Camp, which is a public-private partnership with the City of Angels. And I think, like all of us, we've been trying to do what's for the good of the community, the health of the community, trying to find that balance. I think I bring a unique perspective to the table, to this job, in that I'm a longtime resident, a former business owner here in our area, former city council and mayor of Angels Camp, former county board of supervisor, and here I am now in this driver's seat of economic development and helping our businesses sustain themselves, retool themselves, and of course bring a new business to the area. So glad to join this great panel of many professional women on this panel.
Yes, we've got some girl power today, don't we?
Yeah.
We do. Thanks, Debbie. Awesome. And then last but definitely not least, live from San Francisco, we have Emily Graham. Emily, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm on, okay, now I'm not on mute. Hi. So
Hi.
I'm Emily Graham. I am the Center Manager for the Lode Job Training Office in San Andreas, serving Calaveras County. I can help people who need to know information about EDD because they're one of our major partners, but we also help with training and support services and finding people employees, and also finding employees or former employees new work. So if it's related to the workforce, then I'm your person.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the 6 of you, or the 5 of you, I should say, being on. And I want to give Kristen, if she doesn't mind, once again, giving us a little update, because most of you probably know, but it's nice to hear from someone that's official on what happened to put us really into full phase 2 and where that brings us now. So Kristen, you want to take it away?
Sure. So the bulk of the state, as well as Calaveras County, has been living under what is considered stage 1 of the pandemic for some time now, since we began. That's the governor stay-at-home orders. That's the various things that have been put out there about only leaving one's home to engage in essential functions. And about a week and a half ago, the governor's office provided some ability for various counties within our state to have the ability to move further into stage 2, which would basically mean additional businesses being able to reopen in advance of a state allowability. And those counties that had the ability to do that were counties that had lower disease prevalence, were able to indicate to the state that they had the ability to properly contact trace. There's a number of factors in it, and if anybody is in particularly interested in reading through that, we have it on our COVID-19 webpage under our Roadmap to Recovery tab there. But in a nutshell, what had happened is last Thursday, the governor's office released a method for which counties had the ability to attest that they did have, like I said, the lower disease prevalence, had the ability to do a number of things. And if those attestations were for a variance were posted onto the state's website and they were accepted, then we would have the ability to reopen a number of businesses as part of that stage 2, and that modified reopening with specific conditions. So obviously this all happened very, very fast. Thursday we received the guidance, and by Tuesday we had received the letter of support from the Board of Supervisors, and then the following day, which was Wednesday the 13th, ours was posted, and here we are. So it definitely has been a very quick moving response. But you know, a lot of local communities, and ours included, is very excited for the fact that we were provided that regional variance, the ability to make the case that the response to COVID-19 looks different in every California county. So we are engaged in that. A couple of key components in terms of moving it fully to stage 2 and what that kind of means is that counties, the ability to move into stage 2 is only to move into stage 2. So it's only those businesses that we've detailed on our press releases and that you've seen within the news and that you've seen on our website and the state's website. Those are the only businesses that have the ability to reopen right now in a modified fashion. And we, prior to having that go forward, we had generalized guidance on our website about how businesses can prepare to reopen, what are some safe practices and those types of preparations that businesses could engage in. But again, that was all in preparation, right? And so we were pleased to see that on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, when the guidelines themselves were actually finalized, and that's what we're covering the bulk of today for the various industry sectors, they were a lot of along the lines of what we had all but kind of been preparing for, right? It was the increased sanitation measures, it was the increased social distancing, and those various things that we'll talk through in detail today. But just for timeline purposes, I did want to indicate that, and you can find all of this on our website under the Roadmap to Recovery page. I'll continue to plug that. When you do go on our website, you can link to those state pages, and you basically have the two guiding documents per industry is, oh, thanks, Morgan, you're screen sharing. The two documents per industry sector is a guidance document and a checklist. And those are kind of your go-to documents. The county itself doesn't have additional documents or requirements that we're going to put into place or more county specific. We are deferring to the state guidance. So I did want to add that, and if there's any additional questions throughout, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you for giving that. And before I let Kathy give some highlights, I just wanted to briefly show you guys, and we'll put these links in the comments section. But first, I want to highlight the county's page. So we have the covid19.calaveras.gov.us/roadmap to recovery. And here you'll find, the county's points to the resilience roadmap. And so there's a lot of resources here. My favorites, I love a good infographic. So this is a updated infographic on behalf of Calaveras County. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, so I'm just going to move on really quick to the resilience roadmap actual page. So a lot of you guys have seen this. We did a brief little introduction to it on another video, so I'm not going to spend time on it. But today, what we want to highlight is going into the next stage officially, phase 2. And so where that affects is you can see covid19.california.gov/roadmap/counties. And this is going to have the dine-in restaurants and shopping centers links that Kristen was talking about. So it has the guidance and the checklist. So when people are referencing that today, this is where you can see it. Again, I'll put it in the links. But these two documents right here, which I'm sure most of you have seen, but I just want to highlight those. Now, for the sake of brevity, because I know a number of these ladies are going immediately into another call right after this because they are super important and spread thin. And so I want to make sure that we can keep this down as much as possible. And we found that Q&A was the most valuable to you guys. And so since we want this to be a resource, truly, this will be as effective as you allow it to be with your questions. So if you would like to ask a question, please either raise your hand or write it in the Q&A, and I will bring those up as we have them. And I'm also going to ask each of the ladies to talk about some of the questions that they commonly get, because each of these people that you see represented here field a lot of calls, every single day. And so they're going to have questions that you probably didn't even think of yet that will help you as well. So Kathy, can you give us some highlights on what you want to point out about the retail side for phase 2?
Sure. Am I unmuted? I am. Good. Thank you. So a few of the topics that have come to me through various businesses that I've spoken to is making sure that they don't have too many people in their space. Some of our retailers are large, some of them, and quite a significant amount of them, are smaller. So one of the questions that I get is, well, how many people should I have in my store? How do I, ensure that there's social distancing when people are waiting in line? So to answer a few of those questions, one of the things that we're seeing people use is even simple masking tape or duct tape and putting 6-foot lines in the floor. So when people are waiting to check out, that they're staying socially distanced from the people in front of them. They're using a lot of wipeout, sanitary cleaners in between each customer, whether it's on the ATM pad or if they're giving a receipt or using a pen. That's one thing that kind of is a big thing I didn't think about, is I carry my own pen now. I don't want to use somebody else's pen. I don't want to use a pen that's being used a lot, unless I'm seeing somebody sanitize it each time. So the typical rule that we're hearing is about 50% of occupancy. So every business has an occupancy capacity. That's the number of people, maximum number of people based on your business type that are to be in your store at any one time. People are doing half of that. So if your occupancy is 50, then it's having 25 people in your store at a time. Another great tip is that people are making aisles one way. So rather than having people going both ways in an aisle that can be really narrow, they're making the aisles kind of one way, kind of like in a snaking S pattern. Another question that I get quite a bit is having hand sanitizer available, either when you walk in, having the touchless, where you just wave your hand underneath it and it gives you the sanitizer in your hand, and then also at checkout. There are some other things that people have asked about. Face coverings, that's a real popular topic. There's a difference between face masks and face coverings. Face masks are those that are for primarily our healthcare professionals and first responders, those type of folks. Some folks have them, some don't. I'm seeing a lot of the really cute face coverings, which are made from cloth. They're washer and dryer friendly. And people are using those both as customers and both as business owners to give a sense of confidence and cleaning and safety, and making shoppers' experiences less anxious for those that may be concerned, very, very concerned about the virus, or that may have a medical issue that could make them more vulnerable, age also being a vulnerability. So I know that distancing can be a challenge, especially, as I said, for the smaller businesses. And signage. I get a lot of questions about signage, and I know we're going to talk later about that in the business toolkit. But having signage available, letting people know this is what our business is doing, I think, again, it raises confidence. So if you have a sign on your door that says, these are all the procedures that we're doing, we're sanitizing twice a day, we have markings, we have these things that we're doing, and then also a sign that says our occupancy is 25 people, please wait. When the sign's turned, it says please wait, and then when people exit, more people can come in. So are there any questions at this point? Because I know I can talk really fast.
Kathy, and one of the questions I get frequently, and maybe if whoever best to answer, but as we were dealing with essential, say retail, and now we're kind of opening up more retail, are the rules the same for those who were essential at one point to the ones opening today? And a lot of this comes from, in Angels Camp anyway, we have kind of the big box kind of store versus the small boutique kind of store. So the question some of my smaller retailers are asking, are the conditions the same? Primarily the 50% occupancy into a space, the hand washing, the face masking, etc.
You're muted.
I think that's a really, really good question. And I believe that there was no specific guidance for those that opened as essential services. Not that I recall, maybe Kristen, you're better aware of that. I do know that a lot of our larger retailers did implement their own procedures. I know that they had, wipes at where the carts are, and you could wipe your carts. They weren't requiring customers to wear face coverings, but a lot of their staff did. They also put in those plexiglass shields at checkout. I don't know that those things were required. I think that some businesses did that and some didn't. I know our other retailers, such as our mini marts and gas stations, again, some did, some didn't. So the guidance that we're sharing now is kind of for all retailers, whether they're large or small. Kristen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I know we say this all the time, but I really can't emphasize it enough. This has been an evolving process. So I think as we continue on, we're going to see in adding businesses that are coming back into the fold through the various stages, we're going to have to continue to readjust. So in looking at the guidance that we're pointing to, it does seem to be a little bit more all-encompassing. So I'd echo what Kathy said. The other thing I think that you're making a really good point, though, Debbie, that we talked about this a little bit on the dine-in earlier today, which is this guidance is meant to be overarching, right? And so it does not mean that if there's a specific position that they indicate one should have, like if, for instance, in the guidance, and I don't know if this is there right, by the way, but utilize a greeter to let people in and out. If you're a very small business, it's not the intention of this guidance to mean that you need to now hire a greeter. That's not the intention. It's meant to be as overarching as possible, where businesses are taking into consideration these various requirements or these various guidance points and doing their very best to operate within the spirit of that guidance, which really boils down to increased sanitation, increased physical distancing, and all of these things. So I think what we're trying to cover today is some ways that a smaller business or even a larger business could operate under these guidelines and how they can actually operationalize some of that with some best practices.
I have a lot of questions that I've received, and I apologize to those of you that are watching the recording of this because 2 o'clock was not a convenient time. We'll continue to work on that. Just to let you know, this is the beginning of a series of ones that we're doing that correlate with the resilience roadmap from the state. And so we have a lot more coming down the line, but I would love to get some advice from the 5 of you about, I'm going to start with Chris Gomez from Ironstone. He had a couple of questions, and he said, I understand the jewelry shop is allowed to open, but not indoor museums. Taken literally, I have a couple of options. Number 1, move jewelry into the museum display cases and retail items into the display cases in the vault, with the gold specimen turning the entire space into a jewelry shop. Or number 2, rope off the museum section of the store and close the vault completely. How do the restrictions apply to his store?
So I'm having I'm trying to visualize what you just worked through. But I think the 2 points I would add to this in particular is do your best to make it work, figure out a way to kind of address and fall in line with the parameters. Yes, there are areas that on the surface don't seem to make sense. Why this industry, but not this? And it seems like this has more ability to create more social interaction and such. But this entire world has been very, very gray. I can tell you one of the guidance that we've received since the onset of COVID has been that it's not the state's intention to have you start creating industry or creating a service that you didn't previously provide in order to meet the mandate. So by that, I mean, a good example can be if you were a smoke shop and then as we were moving through this at the very beginning, one of the rules that was put into place was if you served food, well, it wasn't in the spirit of the guidance from the state to intend for you now to start selling food as a means to get around that. So I put that out there to say, in the worst type of governmental response, it really is meant to, here's overarching guidance, do your very best to come in line with it.
Awesome. Tanya has a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
To add to that, because I know exactly where we're talking about. Mm-hmm. I think that has always been a jewelry store, has been a retail store. The museum is also part of that space. And again, as Kristen said, the intent is what's the most important thing. If you can limit the amount of people going in so it's not jam-packed for the museum or jam-packed for the jewelry sales, you can kind of coexist those two businesses in the same way, where people are there for the museum, they can walk through fairly quickly and look at things, or if they're there to look at jewelry, they can go in and look at jewelry, but you just don't have it packed full of people. And you are practicing your safe distancing, that you do have sanitizing you know, whether it's hand sanitizer or wipes, and your employees are really guiding those people appropriately. So
awesome. Okay, I have Tanya here with a question. So Tanya, you should be good to talk.
Awesome. Well, you ladies are doing a brilliant job. I was on your 8 o'clock call this morning, and again, this is just a fabulous idea. I wanted to comment to Kathy's occupancy question. I had been hearing rumors of you have to take your open space and divide it by 120 square feet and eliminate the ownership or the employee, and that's how many customers. So this new figure, the 50% occupancy, that's way bigger than, I mean, most shops can totally handle those number of customers at this point. So that's really good news, I think, that it's not the smaller divide your open space by 120, but just go for 50% occupancy. So thank you for explaining that, Kathy.
I'm going to put into the chat the specific section on occupancy from the guidance, so everybody could just kind of go through it so you can see. Because yeah, that is something that's been evolving, that messaging, and it came out in finality with along the lines of what Kathy just said.
and if you want, I can, do we want to share that screen at this point?
Which screen? And I'll try and get it up here.
The guidance, I have it.
The guidance. Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Actually, this is the checklist, I believe.
Yeah.
The guidance is your next tab, Kathy.
Oh, you're so brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
God, Emily's great. All right. So here it is. This is the guidance. This is what it looks like. And again, it's on the covid19.ca.gov site in their roadmap section. And I'm going to go down to, we can talk about the worksite specific plan later, but we've talked about that. But social distancing.
Thanks for posting that, Kristen, in the chat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can I offer a small business service? I don't know if it helps you, but not everybody has printers and paper and ink and all that other stuff. If you wanted, if any business wanted these documents to be printed for them, we can do that at the Business Resource Center and get those mailed to you.
When in doubt, you just do a search for 50%. So this is under the distancing. So adjust maximum occupancy rules based on the size of the facility to limit the number of people in a store at one time, using no more than 50% maximum occupancy. So that is actually in the retail guidance.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that.
And thank you, Emily, for offering that service. Printing can be an issue, so that's great.
What I would encourage, especially with documents like this, the checklist is one thing. I found this already with the Back to Business Toolkit that we've done, is that it's intended to be a living document, because there is a strong likelihood that things will change and things will update. And so I encourage you, if you are one of those people that has to have paper, do it, but document the date, because likely if you go back the next day, especially with how rapidly things are changing, it might be different. And so the intention with live documents, especially that have links in them and stuff like that, is that you can reference it on the computer, but then, you know, really printing the checklist would be ideal, or any signage that you might need in your location. I have another question that came up. And the question was, what documentation should shops prepare for any code enforcement?
So I'm not sure that there is any code enforcement at this time as far as people coming out and checking on what you're doing. I know at this point the county is not doing that. We're not asking you to submit documents. We're not going to be out spying on your business. Pretty much if the community is concerned with how you're operating, we will get a call at some point probably, but that's not what our intent is. Our intent is here to help the businesses do the right thing, and by providing them with creative tools and also networking with each other. I think it's really important that a lot of our retailers talk with each other about what are best practices. What are you doing that works? What's cost effective? Where can I, maybe go in with you on purchasing bulk items, that kind of thing. So, and I see one of the comments here, which I was going to talk to, is, the outdoors is a good thing. If you have the ability to do some of your sales outdoors, if you have a patio area, if you have, access to a common space, and I know a lot of our small shopping centers do have some outdoor areas, that's a good thing too. Think about that, as an option.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And maybe Debbie, I'm thinking specifically of, for this one, I know she spent a lot of touch time with businesses in her area in Angels Camp. And maybe Colleen, if you want to chime in too, or anybody else that has any feedback. But a question that I got from a couple of businesses is they have a lot of items that are touchy items that people typically want to come over and they want to hold and they want to open and they want to look at. Is there any guidance or are there any businesses that are getting creative right now in ways that we can keep stuff safe and sanitary?
This is Colleen. So I'm not sure if it's in the guidance per se, but we do, just in general, the public health practice is that touch items that are things that are touched often, like door handles, keyboards, pens, I think Kathy mentioned that before, do need to be disinfected fairly frequently. So I'm not sure exactly what the items are. If there are things that can be disinfected, that would be ideal from a public health standpoint. But again, I'm not sure what they are. But if there's a way that people could touch with their eyes, that would be really good too.
Yeah, I could take a little bit of this because I've been asked this question a couple of times too. The guidance that we're discussing today for the shopping centers and such is the guidance that's out. You aren't going to find from the state more specificity about how to particularly do try-ons of clothes, how to particularly address those types of things. And I think that's a little bit intentional because being mindful again of the fact that all businesses are different, these guidance were meant to be overarching, and as much as one can do to kind of operate within the spirit of all of those things that I've said multiple times already is really what the intention is.
Okay.
I can tell you from some of the small business, I mean, the regulations does address if you were, say a gift shop and you allowed people to try that perfume or, put the little lipstick onto your hand and see what it looks like and those kinds of things. They've been discouraged and asked to be, put aside, not have them out. If you tasted, maybe products in your store, whether it be a nuts or jams or jellies or whatever that sometimes some of our boutique shops have, to remove all of those so that you don't have them out for people. I've been talking with people about, develop your policy, because the state doesn't have, no, you can't try clothes on or you can't do this. There are guidelines, but develop your policy within your store with what works best for you. Some people have, reconsidered their return policies. If they are selling something, say a clothing item, and they want to take it home to try it on, that, once you buy it, it leaves the store, it cannot be returned. But make those policies very clear so your shoppers understand that. Clothing is kind of an iffy one, and that, again, our items are boutique-y like, and that's going to be up to that store owner's best judgment and what policy they want to enforce or create for themselves. Maybe they've never had to do that before. And just most retailers right now is like once it leaves the shop, they're just not able to return that. And so that's when people have been creative with, maybe they never did gift certificates before. So if they're buying a gift, you might say that they're looking at more gift certificates. You know, smaller retailers don't often have the gift card capability, but being able to provide a gift certificate instead of buying that item if you're questionable whether or not it's going to fit or they're going to like that color or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So I think you just, you know, again, it's you know, perusing and asking what others are doing, and that networking of some of the smaller shops and what they can do to help support each other and have policies in place so the buying customer understands that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing
Very true. Very true. Another thing that I've seen is, instead of having a huge display where people are tempted, because I'm a toucher, I have to admit it. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. I want to see how heavy it is. But, you know, really discouraging having those massive displays, or having an employee that may be gloved or, you know, can show what the item is and talk about it, you know, allowing that interaction so that people can not touch everything, but feel like they're getting a good look at everything.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarah Hall has a question that she was asking. She said, "Hi all, this is Sarah with this and that discount store in San Andreas. Hi." She said, "We'd like to start doing parking lot sales again. Do you think this is something we can start doing? We were hoping to have one to coincide with the Ragin' Cajun," which I believe, Sarah, is not Ragin' anymore. It's going to be a Ragin' Cajun / wine and cheese or something in the fall. So unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But great question. Can you guys talk about that?
Yeah, and I can. So hi, Sarah. Thank you for coming. I called her yesterday and asked her to please attend. So I know in the past that's what you had done. I think that your conditional use permit allows you to do that. I know you have your parking lot area that worked really great. You have great things out there. I don't see that there's an issue with that. I don't know. I don't remember whether you had to get a special event permit for that, or if that was part of your conditional use. So if you want to put that in the chat, then maybe I can clarify more, but absolutely be a great idea for you to have your parking lot sale. Yep, you got your year pass. You're good to go. Parking lot sale it is. What day is that again? I need another rug.
Awesome. She said, "Yep, we did get a year pass. Thank you." Cool. So great question there, Sarah. Thank you. And again, to anybody else that's attending live, if you have any questions, please either raise your hand or write the question down and we will get to you. I'm going to start with, and before we go to Kathy to maybe show us a worksite specific plan sample, Colleen and maybe Kristen, what kinds of questions are you guys getting that could help kind of enlighten some of the retail participants that are on right now?
Start off, Colleen, and then I think retail is one of the more confusing ones to follow along on the state's website for a very specific reason. So when the state first moved in, the state made the decision to move in as a whole into certain elements of retail for curbside and delivery. So if you go to the general website, which is why we have the different links on the Road to Recovery webpage, if you go to the general website, you'll see a link for retail. And it's under the larger section, which is meant to address all of the businesses that are forthcoming or that are operational right now under the general state order, right? And then you click over to the county specific guidance, which is where you'll find the dining in restaurants and the shopping centers restaurant. That guidance is meant for those counties that have successfully achieved the ability to move into stage 2 in an entirety. So if I was a business, I'd be really confused in this area. It's like, do I follow the retail one or do I follow the shopping centers one? And the short answer is the shopping centers one is the guidance that's intended for those of us like Calaveras County who are completely in operation of stage 2. Whereas the other one is more for the general rest of the state that is doing curbside and delivery only. But if you go through both of them, because I got myself confused multiple times, if you go through both of them, there's a lot of similarities. You'll see the 50% thing kind of in there, and you'll see a lot of similarities, but that's the main thing that I think people have been getting confused when you're talking about smaller businesses like retail businesses and those types of things. So again, we tried our best to keep that as clear as possible, that the county by county guidance one is the one you're going to want to live in the most, that has the most flexibility and is aimed at those of us who are in stage 2.
In this view, your view. Colleen, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
So yeah, I think that is retail specific. That is the question that gets asked the most. Overall, there's 2 questions that I get asked a lot, which is kind of like, what's the number one thing we can do, to protect ourselves and our friends and family, and then that is to wash your hands. So please wash your hands frequently, often, don't touch your face. But then the other question that as these guidances have come down and they say the part about having your employees and yourself do a self-assessment to make sure and to check, see how you're feeling, see how people are feeling, but to also check people's temperatures. A lot of people are confused about that, and so just heads up, for COVID purposes, a temperature is anything above 100 degrees. So I just want to make that clear, because I know, maybe if you haven't had kids for a while, or it's just not on the top of your head, you may not think about that. So those are the 2 things that I get questions about most often.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I've asked that question many times. Kathy, do you want to share your worksite specific plan sample? It's a really long way of saying what you kind of threw together to show how people can put that together, because it seems a little intimidating. I know when you first look at that, what does it mean and how do I do it?
All right. Is it up?
It is. Beautiful.
Good deal. So I know as part of the guidance and the checklist, it asks for businesses, all businesses actually, doesn't matter which sector of the industry you're in, to have a written worksite specific plan. And to make it simple, written means written, doesn't mean it's in your head. So to make it simple, I just created this like 1-page Word document that's, the name of the business and person who's responsible for implementing it. So I have like great retail store, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is a sample, but to actually look at and evaluate your risk. So what's a high risk, what's a medium risk, and a low risk? So obviously high risk is merchandise handling. And then these are mitigation actions that I just kind of made up as I went. So these are, again, this is a sample. Every business is different and has their own way of doing things, but really identifying your high touch areas and focusing on those for cleaning and sanitizing, cash handling, pens, which is my personal peeve, as I mentioned earlier. And I have not asked for a receipt ever since COVID started. Everybody asks me, do you want a receipt? I'm like, nope, it's good, I'm cool. But wearing gloves and face coverings, wiping down your card machines and pens, clipboards, counters, other high touch areas. Some retailers do have restrooms to the public, some don't. So again, that's going to be very specific to each business. And having, if you do have public restrooms, then, maintaining a log, because I think all of us the overarching thing is that we want to keep ourselves, our family, our employees, our community safe. And however we can do that and then relay that information so that shoppers feel comfortable, because there are shoppers, I'll tell you right now, that are still afraid to come out. So it's not just not, wanting to be open, but it's also making sure that people coming into your business feel comfortable as well. As I mentioned, one-way aisles, so that's a lower risk. If you can keep that social distancing of 6 feet between people, you're good. And, having your face coverings. And then, waiting areas, break rooms, stock rooms. That's another area that I didn't really think about, but, some businesses do have significant size stock rooms, and, keeping those areas clean and not having employees, jam in with each other. And then, training and communication. It's really important that businesses do, those that have employees. I know some of our smaller shops are owner operator. They don't have employees, but talking with staff daily and updating them on what's going on and what the procedures are, and updating them on the state's guidance, because things are fluid, and having a process to make sure that things are going the way they should be. If you see something falling through the cracks, or you're noticing something, then correct it as soon as you can, and then update your staff, your employees the next day, and do better each time. And then make sure you have the public health number, which is, I messed it up. It's 209 and then blank. It's 209-754-6460. Oopsie, sorry folks. I do things too fast sometimes.
Colleen just put it in the chat too, but yeah,
Okay.
754-6460. Awesome.
Yes, so that's right here. And then update your plan as needed, as necessary. Maybe you're carrying a new product that is requiring additional cleaning, or you have a display, you have some artwork. So, update the plan, and I just put updated this date, this date, this date. So it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. But it's more important that, that you're aware as a shop owner of what's going on, what needs to be cleaned, wipe in, wipe out, morning and evening. Make sure if you do have employees, they have time to do that before you open your doors. That's another quick clue that I got. Don't open at 8 and expect everything to be clean. So you might have to have folks coming in a little bit early and leaving a little bit late.
Awesome. I think this is a good time to bring in Emily for a moment, because we're talking a little bit about employees. And like Kathy said, a lot of you probably are kind of running your own gig and not doing that. But if you're at the point, excuse me, I'm not sick. If you're at the point where, you need to have employees coming back that you've laid off, Emily.
Yeah, I was actually kind of thinking I'd get a little audience participation going and see if I could get a show of hands, if everybody knows how to raise hands, of how many of you have employees.
That's a great question.
So I kind of get an idea of how many are out there are single. Let's see, how do I get to seeing who's raising their hands?
I'll let you know, but
okay.
We have a couple that are participating by phone that won't be able to.
Okay. If they can talk, they can let me know. Kind of get an idea of how many, because I'm assuming that some of you will have a few employees, maybe some of you don't have any employees, and for those who don't have any or only have a few, are trying to figure out how am I going to get these needs met when, like I said, like someone said, do I have to hire a greeter? Maybe you can't afford to hire a greeter, but you could use one. So maybe Lode Job Training could partner with you to get somebody one of our young people, one of our people in our work experience programs, to go out and get a little exposure and help you out part-time by being a greeter in your business. It gets them exposure to the job market and gets you a little bit of help during this time. So that's one of the programs that we have that is for participants that can actually help for businesses as well. And even if you're a mom and pop shop and you're trying to open up and you could use a little help right now, that would be another thing. So please let me know if that's something that you think would be helpful to you, because then I get a chance to take a look at my job seekers that we have and see if any of them are interested in being able to help. When we do something like that, we are actually the employer of record. So we're the ones that are following these checklists. So we'll take the checklist to the business and say, okay, are you meeting all these requirements for being safe? We're the ones that will ensure that the employee has the PPE, and we're the ones that will pay the employee, and they'll be on our workers' comp insurance and everything else for that limited time. They're limited time jobs, so they're not like forever and a day, but they're things that can get people who've never worked before some good exposure. That's for them. And then for you, it can also help you by giving you an extra set of hands or an extra resource. So that's one of the things we can do. Another thing that we've been able to help people with is advice or information about the work sharing program. When you are bringing employees, or you have employees that are on that you've had to reduce hours a little bit. So some people have talked about not being open on weekends, or adjusting those kinds of schedules. So that's something that we can help you walk through, navigate through that swamp. I mean, EDD. I should be very, they've been extremely helpful to us with getting information, at least through to us, and being able to get through the many different people that are applying for the benefits and getting those services through that state benefit.
Awesome. I put Emily's contact information, and maybe I should have just clarified too, egram@mljt.org, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So she is a great resource if you need to troubleshoot or need some guidance, potentially like EDD related, or if you have employees, you know, that need training. There's so much. I mean, she's a great one-stop shop for employees. So I've used her many times, as I'm sure others here have. Thank you for touching on that. Debbie, I asked you this a little bit earlier, but do you have anything that you are commonly asked that is worth sharing here with the retail group? Hold on. You are muted. You are muted. There we go.
Technology, trying to get used to it all. One of the things that I often caution people on is that, you know, if you're in retail, some are regulated by maybe a state agency or licensed by a state agency. Some retail is not, but everybody is kind of has the overarching regulation of Cal OSHA. And so it's really important that if you've been closed for a while because of this, that number one, I encourage people to check with your insurance company so your company knows that you've reopened again and in what capacity. Certainly ask for any kind of discounts that you can, but ask what their guidelines might be as you reopen. I'm finding kind of different insurance companies are looking for different things. People haven't even thought about it if they've been closed, and kind of sheltering, you might say, and now they're open. Insurance might look at you a little differently, or just keeping them in the loop. And then certainly through this guidance and the checklist, there are some Cal OSHA referrals, references, and I'm finding that most of these websites have all sorts of good information. It takes a while to get through it, but it's well worth it because they have information on how to clean your building, how to clean your facility, proper techniques for that, kinds of products you can use that maybe you don't necessarily buy a product that's been made for you, but you can make your own, and what that entails. Talks about how to properly, you know, kind of keep yourself clean, how to encourage your customers coming in to utilize the services you're providing for them, whether it's a face covering or hand washing. One of the stores said to me, a trash can to put the wipes in. Sometimes you use the wipe and you set it on the counter, and you're trying to avoid those kinds of things. So just little things like that of paying attention to. But the Cal OSHA website is a very good website, you know, good info material. Consistent messaging, I think, is important as well, that I'm finding in regards to these kinds of things with cleanliness and hygiene and sanitation. That's all important, and as consistent as you can be, especially from business to business. It just helps us all, instead of people saying, well, why do they do that? You don't do this, and you've done this. And so, you know, I really encourage people to go to these websites and get that consistent messaging so that you have something to point to, something that's been approved by local state officials as to your cleaning and hygiene practices, your sanitation practices, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I would like to show really quick, thank you, Debbie. We have housed just at the chamber so we can have a location, Back to Business Toolkit, and this is not a county or state requirement, by the way. I just want to make that clear. We just tried to put a resource together that could have some tools if you need it. Still always use the state resilience roadmap as your checklist to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to. But we created this toolkit, and I just want to highlight that we have some documents at the end, like an employee temperature sheet to track if you're going to be doing that, employee self-health checks, notices, and maximum capacity signage. So I just wanted to show that. And I also wanted to highlight a question that we haven't been asked yet that has been asked in a previous group was PPE issues of not having access to appropriate PPE, whether it's hand sanitizer, masks, gloves, whatever it may be. And so I do want to highlight a couple of businesses that you can access. And if you need this information sent to you by email, please feel free to email me. The email is M as in Morgan, GACE @calaveras.org. The first one is Hunt & Sons, which is local, and it shows disinfectant that they have that is EPA friendly approved, EnviroCleanse. So they have that's available. So you can access and contact them by going to their 800 number, which is on their site there. And then there is a resource guide from Ferguson. Their closest branches are either Stockton or Jackson, but they do free delivery and they do same-day delivery depending on when you order. And I just wanted to scroll through to show you that they have a ton of stuff, including the freestanding hand sanitizers, thermometers, wipes, all of that stuff. So you can access them, and I'll put this information below, but there's two contacts there, David Wassam and his information, and Brian Ortiz. For both of them, email is the best way to contact them. It's the fastest way to reach them. So I wanted to share that with PPE there. I know we have a bunch of people that are about to hop out here shortly. I wanted to see if any of you that are having to get out right at 3 o'clock have anything else they need to add. No? No? Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I do. I got to hop out. So I just had a couple of quick things that I wanted to kind of throw out there really quickly. So a couple other bullet points that I wanted to share is for our retailers considering using a touchless payment system, ask customers to bring and use and fill their own bags. I know that I like using my reusable bags, and when I check out, I got my bag ready and I grab my stuff and I put it right in my bag. Another thing is to make sure that your delivery people, your vendors, and those that are working in your stocking areas, make sure that they employ proper procedures for protection of them, yourselves, and your employees. And also discourage any kind of bulk bin items. I get a little bit nervous when I still see those bulk bin of, yogurt dipped pretzels. So you might want to discourage the use of bulk bin items just at this time. And always increase your delivery and online purchasing options. We do have some great resources now in Calaveras County for shopcalaveras.net. Is that right, Morgan?
Yes, shopcalaveras.net. Please use
and
that.
That's a free service. That's a free service for our Calaveras businesses to have an online presence for retail.
Yeah. Anybody else have closing thoughts? No? Awesome. Well, thank you so much to those panelists that joined us today. I know you had a tight schedule. Thank you for the people that attended live. It's so helpful to have your interactions because it helps us to make sure we're not missing a gap anywhere. Our goal is to really help and support you. So thank you so much for that. We are going to have this recording posted out in the next hour or so, depending on how fast I can get it downloaded. So thank you so much for joining. Please, if you're watching the recording, leave comments down below. We'll get back in touch with you, okay? Thanks all so much.
Bye.
Bye.